So let's start with some quick introductions. Rosie, can you tell us about what drew you into ECHO?
My name's Rosie Norris. I was the first chairman of the board of ECHO. When I try to remember the history of the organization and how it began, I'm taken all the way back to 1981, when I attended the National Conference on Missing and Murdered Children. It was held in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was a very powerful conference. There was one workshop I remember in particular where the panel was made up of parents of missing and murdered children. And John and Rosie Walsh were part of that panel. And I don't know if you're familiar with that story of Adam Walsh, terrible, tragic story. And his severed head had been discovered in a canal literally a few weeks before the conference. So you can only imagine how raw and emotional, that was. And it was just, an experience that you couldn't leave and go back to business as usual. Mm-hmm. You had to find some way to try to meaningfully help to prevent and address missing and murdered children. And so that was kind of the impetus that I walked away with. And luckily, I was able to meet and knew a lot of very wonderful, dedicated people who cared about the children and cared about having, providing, is this safety and the protections that our children needed. So, we started meeting, we started discussing, we started trying to figure out, what might be something we could do that could contribute to the issue in a meaningful way.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Lucy, can you introduce yourself and what drove you to come to ECHO?
Yes, I'm Lucy Lee, and I was the first executive director of ECHO. And my story is very personal. In 1983, my son and daughter told me that they had been sexually molested by our babysitters. And I didn't know anything about child abuse. And I needed to learn desperately. And that was in May of 1983. And soon after the children had told me they'd been abused, I saw a little notice in the paper saying that this organization, Exploited Children's Help Organization, was going to have their first meeting. So I attended that first meeting and met Rosie and a number of the other people that she had drawn together, and they provided me with a tremendous amount of support and information, and that started me on my involvement with ECHO, and I was involved from then on.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for that. Linda, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. It was about 1989, beginning of 1989. I'm Linda Engel. I'm a clinical social worker by profession, recently retired. But I had just moved to Kentucky and started a new job at Family and Children's Agency where I was counseling, families. And I had done this before. I had 3 children by this time, and we'd moved for my husband's job. And one of the families I met, it was a little preschooler who was a cute blonde 3.5-year-old. And, mom was wondering, there was a recent separation. Mom was wondering if there was abuse involved, the way this little girl was acting. And so I interviewed. At that time, we were using some video supervision, and my supervisor watched me interviewing this little girl and watched me interviewing her mom. And we decided, yeah, we thought that maybe something was happening. Weren't sure by whom, and all this. But so as it turned out, there were investigations by the child protection people, and the person who was involved in that wasn't sure because mom seemed pretty hysterical and all this kind of thing. But it turned out that we eventually both thought this was the case, and mom was going through the whole system. And someone I said, well, where can I get somebody from mom to talk to understand the system? And one of my colleagues had done more of this work, and she suggested Lucy Lee. And she said, well, why don't you call Lucy Lee and see, if there's another parent or something. And I called Lucy, and immediately she got in touch with this parent, and it made a tremendous difference to the parent. And this was so long ago, and recently, that the nice part of the story is that the parent contacted me. The little girl is a nurse. Everything is good. She thanked me, which, doesn't happen so often that when you hear the end of the story. So it's very special. And that was my introduction to Echo.
And Miss Sonja, what was your introduction to Echo? And who are you?
Oh, who am I? Yes. Well, I am Sonja Grey, and I am the current executive director for Echo Exploited Children's Help Organization. And I've had the honor and the privilege to meet all of these phenomenal women prior to me actually being hired on. I will have to say Echo found me. I didn't really search for Echo. They were launching an opportunity for a new executive director, and a recruitment specialist actually contacted me and said, there's an opportunity that has come through my portal, and I just want to see if you're interested in this. But I'm going to forewarn you that this is kind of heavy work. And I am just one of those, I'm always going to at least seek out the opportunity. And when she mentioned talking and working with kids, I was, even more interested in what the position was. And so I looked into the job description. I did my homework and my research of the organization. And when I found out about the history and how we evolved, to be a nonprofit, my heart was just there. And my passion was there. I have been in the nonprofit sector for over 10 years working with kids, from mentorship to dance coach and things of that nature. So I've always had a big heart for children and allowing children to be able to live happy, fruitful lives. And so, fortunately enough, Linda at that time was the board chair, and I had an opportunity to interview with them. And I just went in as myself and just was hoping that they would accept me as myself, and understanding that the underlying factor of me being there is that I wanted to be a part of this work. I wanted to be a part of this family and keep up the good work that has already been done prior to me coming on board. But I just wanted to be a part of that. And fortunately enough, as you can see, they did hire me, and I've been here it's going on 9 years now. And this is probably some of the most rewarding work that I've done, even including the trauma and things of that nature. But again, to be able to support kids has always been my mission and my goal in life. So that is what brought me to Echo.